My sister secretly manipulated my husband into an affair by convincing him I was planning to leave him, then orchestrated an elaborate scheme to break up my marriage and steal my children. So I exposed her psychological manipulation and financial fraud to destroy her reputation when she refused to end her obsession with taking over my life. I've been married to my husband David for 16 years, and we have 3 beautiful children aged 14, 12, and 8, who are the center of our world and the foundation of everything we've built together as a family. David and I met in college, fell deeply in love, and have created what I always believed was a strong, stable marriage based on trust, communication, and shared values about family life and raising our children. My older sister Jennifer has always been what I would diplomatically describe as competitive and manipulative, especially when it comes to relationships achievements and anything that she perceives as evidence that my life might be more successful or fulfilling than hers. Jennifer is 38 years old, divorced twice, and has struggled throughout her adult life with what our family politely refers to as boundary issues and an inability to maintain healthy long-term relationships. Jennifer has very intense feelings about fairness, family loyalty, and what she considers the unfair advantages that some people receive in life, especially when it comes to marriage stability, financial security, and family happiness. Jennifer seems to believe that my successful marriage and stable family life represent something that was stolen from her, and that she deserves to have the same level of happiness and security that David and I have created together. Jennifer had been living alone for the past 3 years after her second divorce and had been struggling financially and emotionally while working in various temporary jobs and dealing with what she described as depression and anxiety about her future prospects for finding love and building the family life she had always wanted. The problems started about 14 months ago when Jennifer began spending significantly more time with our family and making comments about how lucky I was to have such a devoted husband and well-behaved children. Jennifer started visiting our house several times per week, often arriving during dinner time or family activities, and staying for extended periods while engaging David in long conversations about his work stress and personal interests. At first, I thought Jennifer was simply going through a difficult period after her divorce, and that her increased involvement with our family was a healthy way for her to maintain social connections and feel supported during her emotional recovery. But then I noticed that Jennifer seemed particularly interested in David's opinions and feelings, and would often seek private conversations with him about topics that seemed inappropriately personal for a sister-in-law relationship. Jennifer also started making subtle comments about my parenting decisions, household management, and marriage relationship in ways that seemed designed to plant seeds of doubt about my capabilities as a wife and mother. Jennifer would suggest that David worked too hard and deserved more appreciation, or that our children needed more structured activities and educational opportunities that I wasn't providing. Most concerning, Jennifer began expressing opinions about marriage relationships and emotional needs that seemed specifically targeted at undermining David's confidence in our relationship. Jennifer would make comments about how some women take their husbands for granted, or how men often feel unappreciated and misunderstood in long-term marriages. I was initially annoyed by Jennifer's increasingly intrusive behavior and inappropriate comments, but I attributed her actions to loneliness and poor judgment rather than deliberate manipulation. I thought Jennifer was simply having difficulty maintaining appropriate boundaries after her divorce, and that her behavior would improve as she adjusted to single life and developed her own social relationships. I mentioned my concerns to David and asked him to be more aware of Jennifer's tendency to overshare personal information and seek inappropriate emotional support from married men. David assured me that he viewed Jennifer as a troubled family member who needed support, and that he had no interest in her beyond normal family courtesy and concern for her well-being. But Jennifer's behavior became increasingly problematic as she started calling and texting David directly about personal problems and emotional issues that she claimed she couldn't discuss with me because I wouldn't understand her perspective. Jennifer began positioning herself as someone who could provide David with emotional support and understanding that he supposedly wasn't receiving in our marriage. Jennifer also started arriving at our house when she knew I would be at work or busy with children's activities, creating opportunities for private conversations with David about their personal lives and relationship problems. Jennifer would time her visits to coincide with moments when David might be feeling stressed or overwhelmed with work and family responsibilities. The manipulation tactics that Jennifer was using to gain access to my husband and undermine our marriage made me increasingly angry, and I realized that we were dealing with someone who was deliberately trying to create problems in our relationship for her own psychological and emotional purposes. I decided that I needed to confront Jennifer directly about her inappropriate behavior and make it absolutely clear that her interference in our marriage was unacceptable and had to stop immediately. I arranged to meet Jennifer privately to discuss her boundary violations and demand that she respect our family relationships. When I confronted Jennifer about her inappropriate relationship with David, she initially tried to claim that she was simply being a supportive sister who was helping David through some difficult personal issues that he felt uncomfortable discussing with me. Jennifer insisted that her conversations with David were innocent family support and that I was being paranoid and jealous about normal family relationships. But when I pressed Jennifer for details about the personal issues David had supposedly been discussing with her, she became evasive and defensive about providing specific information. Jennifer claimed that David had confided in her about feeling unappreciated and misunderstood in our marriage, and that he had expressed concerns about our relationship that he felt he couldn't share with me directly. Jennifer also suggested that I was being controlling and possessive by trying to limit David's friendships and family relationships, and that my jealousy was actually creating the marriage problems that I was worried about. She claimed that David needed emotional support and understanding that I wasn't providing, and that she was simply filling a gap in his emotional needs. The conversation became increasingly heated as Jennifer refused to acknowledge that her behavior was inappropriate and continued to insist that she was helping David and our family by providing emotional support that I was apparently unable to give. I finally told Jennifer that her contact with David would be limited to family gatherings and that she was no longer welcome to visit our house or contact David privately. Jennifer responded by claiming that I was trying to isolate David from his support system and that my controlling behavior was exactly the kind of thing that drove men away from their marriages. Jennifer threatened to tell David about our conversation and warned me that trying to control his relationships would backfire and cause serious problems in our marriage. I was shocked by Jennifer's hostile response and her apparent belief that she had some kind of legitimate claim to an intimate relationship with my husband. I told Jennifer that I would be discussing her behavior with David and that we would be establishing clear boundaries about her involvement in our family life. Update 1. After I confronted Jennifer about her inappropriate relationship with David, I thought we could simply establish boundaries and move forward with normal family interactions. But I was completely wrong about Jennifer's willingness to respect our marriage, and the situation actually escalated in ways that revealed the true extent of her obsession with destroying our relationship. Jennifer immediately began what she called a truth-telling campaign, designed to help David understand what she claimed were serious problems in our marriage that I was either ignoring or deliberately concealing from him. Jennifer contacted David directly to inform him about our confrontation and to present her version of events that portrayed me as a jealous, controlling wife who was trying to isolate him from family support. Jennifer also began sharing with David what she claimed were insights about our marriage that she had gained through her conversations with me and her observations of our family dynamics. Jennifer told David that I had been complaining about him to her and expressing dissatisfaction with our marriage that I was apparently hiding from him to maintain appearances. Most damaging, Jennifer began fabricating stories about conversations she claimed to have had with me where I had supposedly expressed regret about our marriage, doubts about David's career prospects, and concerns about whether I had married the right person. Jennifer convinced David that I had been confiding in her about serious relationship problems that I was keeping secret from him. Jennifer also started providing David with what she called evidence of my dissatisfaction, including claims that I had been researching divorce attorneys' financial planning for single mothers and strategies for gaining primary custody of children in divorce proceedings. Jennifer presented these fabricated concerns as proof that I was planning to leave our marriage and that David needed to protect himself. David began questioning me about the issues Jennifer had raised and expressing confusion about why I hadn't shared these supposed concerns with him directly. David seemed hurt and betrayed by what he believed were my secret doubts about our marriage and my apparent planning for divorce without his knowledge. When I tried to explain that Jennifer had fabricated these stories and that I had never expressed dissatisfaction with our marriage, David seemed torn between believing me and believing Jennifer's claims about my hidden feelings. Jennifer had been so convincing in her manipulation that David was genuinely confused about what to believe. Jennifer also began positioning herself as someone who could help David through this difficult period by providing emotional support and honest communication that he supposedly wasn't receiving from me. Jennifer offered to be a neutral family member who could help David understand my motivations and plan his response to what she claimed were my secret plans to end our marriage. The psychological manipulation that Jennifer was using to turn my husband against me and destroy our marriage made me absolutely furious, and I realized that we were dealing with someone who was willing to lie and manipulate family relationships to satisfy her own need to possess what she perceived as my successful life. I decided that I needed to gather evidence of Jennifer's manipulation and present David with proof that she had been fabricating stories about our marriage and deliberately trying to create conflict between us. I began documenting Jennifer's lies and researching strategies for exposing manipulation tactics to help David understand what was really happening. But Jennifer's campaign against our marriage became increasingly sophisticated as she began creating what appeared to be evidence to support her claims about my dissatisfaction with our relationship. Jennifer fabricated text message conversations, social media posts, and email communications that seemed to document my supposed complaints about David and our marriage. Jennifer also began recruiting other family members and mutual friends to support her narrative about problems in our marriage by sharing her fabricated stories about my supposed confessions and concerns. Jennifer convinced several people that I had been asking for advice about divorce and that she was trying to help me work through my relationship problems. Most disturbing, Jennifer began suggesting to David that their growing emotional connection was a natural response to his need for understanding and support during this difficult period in our marriage. Jennifer positioned their relationship as a healthy friendship that was helping David cope with my supposed rejection and dishonesty. David began spending more time with Jennifer supposedly to get advice about how to handle our marriage problems and to receive emotional support during what he believed was a crisis in our relationship. Jennifer encouraged this increased contact by claiming that she was helping David understand my perspective and find ways to save our marriage. But I soon discovered that Jennifer's true motivation was to establish an intimate relationship with David that would eventually replace our marriage entirely. Jennifer had been using her fabricated stories about our marriage problems as a strategy for positioning herself as David's primary emotional partner and eventual romantic relationship. Update 2. The situation with Jennifer reached a crisis point when I discovered that she had successfully manipulated David into beginning a physical affair by convincing him that our marriage was already over and that I was planning to file for divorce regardless of his efforts to save our relationship. Jennifer had been escalating her emotional manipulation of David by providing increasingly detailed fabricated evidence of my supposed plans to end our marriage, including fake documentation of consultations with divorce attorneys' financial planning for single life and research into custody arrangements that would limit David's access to our children. Jennifer had also been providing David with what she claimed was expert advice about protecting himself financially and emotionally from what she described as my inevitable abandonment of our family. Jennifer convinced David that I was planning to take our children and move to another state where his parental rights would be limited. Most manipulative Jennifer had been encouraging David to view their growing intimacy as a natural progression from emotional support to romantic relationship, by suggesting that I had already emotionally abandoned our marriage and that David deserved to find happiness with someone who truly appreciated and understood him. Jennifer had been using sophisticated psychological tactics to convince David that beginning a relationship with her would actually be an act of self-preservation rather than betrayal, because I had supposedly already committed emotional adultery by planning to leave our marriage without attempting to resolve our problems. When I discovered evidence of David's affair with Jennifer, I was devastated not only by his betrayal, but by the realization that Jennifer had successfully manipulated him into believing that our marriage was beyond repair and that I was planning to abandon our family. David had been thoroughly convinced by Jennifer's lies and manipulation. I confronted David with evidence that Jennifer had been fabricating stories about our marriage and demanded that he explain how he could believe her claims without ever discussing these supposed problems with me directly. David initially defended his relationship with Jennifer by claiming that he had tried to discuss marriage problems with me, but that I had been evasive and dishonest about my true feelings. But when I pressed David to provide specific examples of when I had expressed dissatisfaction with our marriage or discussed divorce plans, he began to realize that all of his information had come from Jennifer rather than from actual conversations with me. David slowly began to understand that he had been manipulated into believing fabricated stories about our relationship. The realization that Jennifer had deliberately destroyed our marriage through lies and manipulation caused David to experience intense guilt, shame, and anger about his betrayal of our family. David was horrified to understand that he had been used as a tool in Jennifer's scheme to destroy our marriage and steal our family life. I demanded that David immediately end all contact with Jennifer and commit to marriage counseling to address the damage that her manipulation had caused to our relationship. David agreed to these conditions and expressed genuine remorse for allowing himself to be manipulated into betraying our marriage vows and family commitments. But Jennifer was not willing to accept the end of her relationship with David and began what she called a truth campaign designed to convince David that I was manipulating him into abandoning their authentic connection and returning to a marriage that was fundamentally dishonest and unfulfilling. Jennifer contacted David repeatedly to claim that I was using guilt and emotional manipulation to force him back into an unhappy marriage, and that he would regret giving up their relationship to return to what she described as a loveless commitment based on obligation rather than genuine affection. Jennifer also began threatening to expose details of her affair with David to our children, family members, and community unless he agreed to continue their relationship and leave our marriage. Jennifer claimed that she was protecting David from my emotional abuse and that she would not allow me to destroy his happiness. The threats and continued manipulation from Jennifer convinced me that we were dealing with someone who was completely obsessed with possessing David and our family life, and who would continue to cause problems until she was completely removed from our lives through legal intervention. I decided that I needed to gather comprehensive evidence of Jennifer's manipulation, fraud, and threats to pursue legal action that would protect our family from her continued interference and establish consequences for her deliberate destruction of our marriage. My investigation revealed that Jennifer's campaign against our marriage had involved sophisticated fraud, including fabricated documents, fake communications, and identity theft that she had used to create false evidence of my supposed dissatisfaction with our relationship. I also discovered that Jennifer had been accessing our financial accounts, social media profiles, and personal communications through illegal means to gather information that she could use to support her fabricated stories about our marriage problems. Update 3. My investigation into Jennifer's manipulation tactics revealed that her campaign to destroy our marriage was part of a much larger pattern of identity theft, financial fraud, and psychological manipulation that she had been using to insert herself into other people's lives and relationships. I discovered that Jennifer had been using similar manipulation strategies with other married couples in our community, including creating fake evidence of marital problems, fabricating emotional affairs, and attempting to position herself as a relationship counselor who could help resolve manufactured crises. Jennifer had been systematically targeting successful marriages and stable families by identifying couples who appeared happy and financially secure, then developing elaborate schemes to create relationship problems that would allow her to insert herself into their lives as a helper and eventual replacement partner. The investigation revealed that Jennifer had been conducting sophisticated identity theft operations that allowed her to access financial accounts, social media profiles, email communications, and personal documents belonging to her targets. Jennifer had been using this stolen information to create fabricated evidence of relationship problems and to manipulate both partners in targeted marriages. I also discovered that Jennifer had been operating multiple fake social media profiles, dating website accounts, and business identities that she used to research potential targets and gather information about their vulnerabilities and relationship dynamics. Most shocking, I found evidence that Jennifer had been working with a network of individuals who specialized in relationship manipulation and marriage destruction services. This network provided Jennifer with technical support for her identity theft activities, legal advice about avoiding prosecution, and psychological guidance about manipulation tactics. The criminal network that Jennifer was part of had been operating for several years and had successfully destroyed dozens of marriages while generating substantial financial profits through fraud, identity theft, and extortion schemes targeting wealthy couples and families. Jennifer and her associates had been using the personal information and relationship disruption they created to commit various forms of financial fraud, including credit card theft, mortgage fraud, insurance scams, and identity theft, that allowed them to steal money and assets from their victims. When I presented this evidence to law enforcement authorities, they launched a comprehensive investigation into Jennifer's criminal activities and the broader network of relationship manipulation specialists she had been working with. Federal investigators discovered that Jennifer's network had been operating across multiple states and had been involved in sophisticated financial crimes that included money laundering, tax evasion, and organized fraud schemes that had stolen millions of dollars from victims. The investigation revealed that Jennifer had personally been responsible for destroying at least 12 marriages and had been involved in financial fraud schemes that had stolen over $800,000 from her victims through various identity theft and manipulation tactics. Jennifer was arrested on federal charges including identity theft, fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and operating a criminal organization. The federal prosecutor explained that Jennifer's activities represented a sophisticated criminal enterprise that had caused extensive financial and emotional damage to numerous families. The investigation expanded to include Jennifer's criminal associates and resulted in coordinated law enforcement actions that dismantled the entire relationship manipulation network. Federal authorities discovered that the network had been operating in 15 states and had victimized hundreds of families. David and I entered intensive marriage counseling to address the trauma and trust issues that Jennifer's manipulation had created in our relationship. The counseling process was difficult and painful, but ultimately helped us understand how Jennifer had exploited normal marriage stresses and communication gaps to create artificial problems. Our marriage counselor explained that Jennifer's manipulation tactics were consistent with sophisticated psychological warfare techniques designed to create doubt, confusion, and conflict in stable relationships. The counselor helped us develop communication strategies and trust-building exercises to repair the damage caused by Jennifer's interference. Final update: it's been 2 years since Jennifer's arrest and conviction, and I'm relieved to report that David and I have successfully rebuilt our marriage and created an even stronger foundation of trust and communication than we had before Jennifer's manipulation campaign. The extensive marriage counseling we received helped us understand how Jennifer had exploited normal relationship challenges and communication patterns to create artificial crises in our marriage. We learned to recognize manipulation tactics and developed much stronger communication skills that have actually improved our relationship beyond its previous level. David has expressed deep remorse for allowing himself to be manipulated into betraying our marriage and has demonstrated his commitment to rebuilding trust through complete transparency about his activities, relationships, and communications. David now understands how Jennifer used his natural desire to be helpful and supportive to manipulate him into compromising our marriage. Our children required counseling to help them process the family crisis and understand why their aunt had been trying to destroy our family. The therapy helped our children develop critical thinking skills about manipulation and taught them to recognize when adults might be trying to use them to cause problems between their parents. Jennifer was ultimately sentenced to 15 years in federal prison on charges related to her criminal network and the financial fraud schemes she had been operating. The federal judge noted that Jennifer had shown no remorse for the families she had destroyed and that her sophisticated manipulation tactics demonstrated ongoing danger to community safety. The investigation and prosecution of Jennifer's criminal network led to the recovery of substantial stolen assets and provided restitution to many of her victims. The case also resulted in new legislation designed to strengthen penalties for relationship manipulation crimes and identity theft targeting families. Many of the families who had been victimized by Jennifer's network have maintained contact and formed a support group for couples recovering from deliberate relationship manipulation. We learned that rebuilding trust after manipulation requires extensive professional support, but that marriages can become stronger through the recovery process. Our experience with Jennifer's manipulation has made us much more aware of the sophisticated tactics used by individuals who target stable families and relationships. We now maintain much stricter boundaries with family members and are more cautious about sharing personal information about our marriage and family life. David and I have become advocates for marriage protection and education about manipulation tactics. We speak to couples groups and marriage counseling programs about recognizing the warning signs of relationship manipulation and protecting marriages from external interference. Our marriage is now stronger than it has ever been because we have developed much more effective communication skills and have learned to address relationship challenges directly rather than allowing outside influences to create problems between us. The children have also benefited from seeing us work through this crisis together and have learned valuable lessons about commitment, trust, and the importance of protecting family relationships from people who might try to cause problems for their own purposes. Looking back on everything that happened, I'm grateful that we were able to expose Jennifer's manipulation before she succeeded in permanently destroying our marriage and family. The experience was traumatic and painful, but ultimately strengthened our relationship and taught us valuable lessons about protecting our family from future threats. The federal prosecution of Jennifer's criminal network has helped protect other families from similar manipulation and has established important legal precedents for addressing relationship crimes and family manipulation schemes. Sometimes protecting your marriage means being willing to challenge family members who exploit trust and relationships for criminal purposes. And sometimes it means accepting that rebuilding trust after manipulation requires extensive professional support and long-term commitment to transparency and communication. The most important lesson we learned is that stable marriages require constant protection from external influences, and that couples must maintain strong communication and trust to prevent manipulative individuals from exploiting normal relationship challenges to create artificial problems. Sometimes the greatest threat to a happy marriage comes not from internal problems, but from external forces that deliberately work to create division and conflict, and protecting your family requires recognizing these threats and taking decisive action to eliminate them before they can cause permanent damage.